The first moment of awareness arrived like a distant echo, as if my mind floated on dark waters and I could not quite swim to the surface. A dull pounding filled my head, and across my senses drifted the acrid tang of ozone. Mingled with the heavy iron scent of blood, thunder rumbled in the distance, like a mighty creature growling from beneath the earth, but I could not tell whether it was outside my body or within my own skull. Only when I forced open my eyes did I realize that the low peals of thunder were real, and that I lay on the storm-ravaged moon of Vessara. I groaned, shifting my weight. My arms felt numb and leaden, my wrists pressed painfully together by a pair of metal cuffs shackles chaining me to a stone pillar. Panic flared. How had I gotten here? My memories were blurred, images of neon-lit docking bays, suspicious figures handing me crates, the promise of a smuggling run that might end in profit. I was Rowan, a man who had piloted small cargo vessels through blockades and across the lawless zones near the Haradin Nebula. When the Korat Syndicate's name first reached my ears, I had paid it little heed. I believed I could outrun them or outscheme them. Now, as I blinked under the sickly glow of Vessara's distant sun, I realized how I had miscalculated. Chains clinked against stone as I tried to sit up, and a soft hiss from my left made me freeze. Twisting, I saw another captive, her body similarly bound tall, lithe, and covered in deep blue stripes that ran along her muscular arms. Her hairless scalp curved smoothly into a ridged crest behind her skull. Despite the alien physiology, her features were arrestingly beautiful in that fierce, commanding way you sense in warriors. Her eyes glowed with a predatory gleam. She wore scraps of armor battered and dented, with a jagged slash across her shoulder that still oozed dark fluid. At my movement, she bared her teeth with a warning snarl. I swallowed, then spoke softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just trying to figure out where we are." The alien, however, did not relax. Her amber gaze locked on me with suspicion. Then, unexpectedly, she turned her head and spat words in a language I did not understand. The syllables were harsh, guttural, but laced with frustration. When she noticed I did not respond, her expression twisted with what might have been resignation. She repeated the words more slowly, gesturing to the shackles that connected us. We were both bound to the same pillar, forced into close proximity. I shrugged helplessly. "I don't speak your language." My voice cracked from thirst, and my tongue felt thick. "Can you understand me?" For a moment, only the roar of far-off thunder and the hiss of swirling dust answered. Then, slowly, she nodded. The slight tension in her shoulders seemed to ease, and she looked me up and down with a gaze that seemed far too shrewd. "You are the human smuggler," she said in halting but serviceable standard. The first overheard. "Syndicate guards mention your name. Rowan. You carried stolen cargo." "Yes." I winced at her tone. "I was transporting cargo. I didn't know it was stolen from the Korat Syndicate, at least. Not at first. I suppose you know how that turned out." She frowned, her expression grim. "I am called Zara." She tugged at her chains with a snarl. "I fought on my world. I refused the Syndicate's demands. They captured me and said I must fight here, in their arenas. They do this to many. Now, they have placed me with you." Something in her voice gave me pause. "Why with me specifically?" She hesitated. A great gust of wind swept across the barren, rocky plain, flinging up grit that pelted my cheeks. "Because," she said at last, "you and I must survive together. They pit captives against each other, or in teams. The storms tear the sky overhead, and the ground is stained with the blood of the lost. I believe they want to see if we will kill each other." Her lips curled in distaste. The Korat Syndicate amuse themselves with forced matches, where only the most ruthless remain. An uneasy chill ran through me. And if we refuse to fight? Zara closed her eyes. "They will punish us, kill us, make a spectacle of us in the arenas. Our chains will be hammered into the ground for all to see. We have no choice. Her voice was heavy with bitterness. But perhaps we can fight back, I exhaled, leaning my head against the pillar. Outside the circle of the courtyard, where we were confined, tall black walls rose, battered by howling winds. Enormous spires jutted from the fortress's corners. Across the courtyard lay more captives, some unconscious, some sobbing softly as the syndicate's foot soldiers patrolled. Lightning flashed in a swirling sky, illuminating the watchers' rifles and metal masks. I don't see an easy way out, I muttered. But let's not give in just yet. Zara's gaze flicked toward me, and a strange determination lit her features. Agreed. Rowan. We stand a better chance together. Though her tone was stern, I felt the hint of relief that neither of us would stand alone. I nodded, grimly aware that for now, my fate was bound to hers, both figuratively and literally. And so our partnership, our uneasy alliance began. Beneath the rolling storm clouds of Vessara, in the shadow of the Korat Syndicate's cruelty, with nothing to hold us upright but an ember of hope, we did not remain chained outdoors for long. Within the hour, Syndicate enforcers appeared in their segmented armor of black and bronze, faces obscured behind tinted visors. They separated us from the other captives, unlocking our shackles from the pillar, but leaving a short chain still linking Zara and me. Thus tethered, we were guided through a maze of corridors within the fortress's looming walls. The inside reeked of sweat and old blood. The labyrinth eventually opened into a cramped chamber lined with metallic cages, each stuffed with unfortunate souls from a dozen worlds. Familiar species, some from human colonies, huddled together, while others I had never encountered cowered in corners. Low moans and hushed sobs underscored the stench of despair. Echoes of laughter floated in from distant halls, where Syndicate personnel feasted on the misery. Our guards shoved us into a cell scarcely large enough for two. When the heavy door clanged shut behind us, Zara inhaled through her nose, measuring the stale air. Always, they keep me caged, she muttered darkly. One day, I will break these bars. I tested the bars with a tentative pull. They were cold and unyielding, seemingly reinforced with a polymer that could resist laser cutters. We'll need more than brute strength, I said under my breath. We'll need cunning. She turned her face toward me. You have cunning, human. A flicker of a smile touched my lips. I've managed to avoid a few close calls in my time. Surviving black market deals, skipping through blockades. None of it means much in this place, but it's something. A moment passed in silence, our breathing hushed, as we listened to the muffled clanks and shouts beyond our cell. Then we heard thunder again, reverberating through the walls. I stepped closer to the barred door, trying to peer out into the corridor. Across from us, a huddle of 3 insectoid creatures whispered in their own language. They had drooping antennae and trembling mandibles. Each wore ragged cloth around its chitinous torso. Their wide eyes glimmered with fear. Zara bent down, picking at the chain binding us wrist to wrist. Her voice, when she spoke, was low enough that I could barely catch the words. The Korat Syndicate have forced me to fight before. One day, an enemy wields a spear. The next day, they give me a blade. Make me face 2 beasts in a pit. I have spilled enough blood to fill a crater. If I do not fight, they kill me. You don't seem the type to break so easily, I ventured, scanning her face. She gave me a wry look. I do not intend to break, but each day I endure further dishonor. My people have traditions. We fight for a cause, protect the helpless, preserve our homes. Here, fighting is for entertainment. I am forced to slay strangers, to amuse the Syndicate's lords. It is sickening. I placed a hand lightly on hers in an attempt to offer camaraderie. She stiffened but did not pull away. We'll find a way out. We'll keep each other alive in the meantime. Her gaze held mine for a heartbeat. Then she nodded curtly. At that moment, a guard stalked down the corridor, rattling the cell doors. Silence. All of you, he barked. Tomorrow, it begins again. Those who survive will receive water. His laughter grated along my spine. Those who defy us earn an immediate death, though perhaps that's a mercy in this place. I tasted fury in my throat but held it in. Anger alone would not free us. Anger would only cause reckless moves. Zara's lips curled back in a snarl, but she too withheld words, apparently wiser than to waste energy in a fruitless argument. As the guards' footsteps receded, and the lights dimmed in the fortress's corridors, Zara and I settled on the uneven floor, pressed back to back. We tried to rest as best we could, despite the swirling storm outside. The fortress walls trapped the heat within, causing sweat to bead across my brow. My muscles throbbed from the earlier scuffle, and exhaustion crept into my veins. I closed my eyes, drifting in and out of unsettled sleep. Faint nightmares plagued me, haunting glimpses of an arena bathed in violet torchlight. Rows of masked syndicate lords cheering as monstrous creatures rushed at me. At my side, Zara crouched, her eyes blazing with wrath, slashing at foes I could barely comprehend. Then, a clang of metal, a rush of searing pain. I jerked awake, my heart pounding. Zara stirred too, the chain clinking softly. But she did not speak, only reached out with her caul-used fingers to rest them on my arm. The small gesture steadied me more than any words could. In that closeness, the swirling dread eased, replaced by a kind of resolute determination. We might be total strangers, forced together by misfortune, but in that moment, we had each other. For now, that was all we could rely on. Eventually, I managed a few more hours of fitful rest. Dawn on Vessara was only marginally brighter than its nights, thanks to the ever-churning clouds and the veiled star overhead. By the time our cell door rattled again, faint orange light seeped through small slits in the fortress wall, painting the corridors in an ominous glow. "Get up!" came the bark of a guard, flanked by two more. The trio's rifles glinted. One guard shoved a metallic collar at Zara, while the other approached me with a length of chain. "No tricks. We're moving you to the training pits. You'll practice or you'll die. Up to you." We were forced out of our cell, joined by a sorry procession of other captives, some tall, some short, from half a dozen species, all wearing exhaustion like a second skin. The chain linking Zara and me meant we had to walk in tandem. The tension between us was palpable, but beneath it lay a growing sense of solidarity, for we marched into what was likely the first step in the syndicate's plan to break us. We would not break. The training pits were carved into the rocky surface within the fortress's interior courtyard. Metal grates lined the top, allowing the ever-present howling wind to sweep dust across the floor. A handful of battered weapon staves, blades, spiked clubs were piled carelessly in a corner, and the reek of stale sweat mingled with old blood. Syndicate overseers, perched on elevated platforms, watched from above with crossed arms and dispassionate faces. One of them, a tall, skeletal figure with bright yellow eyes behind a black mask, addressed the group. "Listen well, scum. You are to be tested. Show us what you can do. Impress us, and you may live long enough to fight in the main arena. Fail, and your remains will be tossed out for the stormworms." A shrill laugh cut through the air from another overseer, who banged a staff against the platform's railing. "Pair off. Show us your skill. No lethal strikes, yet." My stomach twisted. Was I supposed to spar with Zara, or would we face others? Zara's eyes flicked to mine, and I saw the same question in her gaze. Then a guard barked out orders. They separated some of the captives, matching them with different partners, but left us together. I realized they saw us as a single unit, now a pair forcibly bound. Maybe the syndicate's entertainment value relied on how well we did or did not work together. Zara strode forward, raising her chin as the guard handed her a spear with a pointed tip. Turn, was given a short sword. "Fight well, or die," the guard snarled. Across from us, two alien fighters stepped into the pit. One was a bulky reptilian with bony plates covering its shoulders, wielding a massive hammer. The other was a wiry, pale-skinned humanoid with elongated limbs and a cluster of black eyes across its forehead. They did not look pleased to see us, nor did they appear eager to hold back. "Begin!" roared the overseer from above. With an explosive rush, the reptilian swung its hammer in a wide arc, aimed at Zara. She sidestepped, yanking me sideways with our connecting chain, causing me to stumble, but also saving me from a strike that would have cracked bone. My sword felt unwieldy in my hands. I had never been a soldier, though I knew how to handle a sidearm. Blades were less my forte, but I had to manage. The slender humanoid attacked from our left, slashing with a jagged blade. I parried clumsily, the clang of steel ringing in my ears. Zara moved in perfect counterbalance, spinning the spear to jab at the reptilian. Her fluid grace was extraordinary to watch, each strike measured, each evasion swift. She fought with her entire body, muscles coiling and releasing like a coiled serpent. Yet, we were hampered by the chain. My footwork and her footwork did not match. Several times, the reptilian's hammer nearly found its mark, only for Zara to pivot out of the way at the last moment, forcing me along, nearly tripping me over my own feet. I gritted my teeth, focusing on defense. The pale-skinned foe lunged again, and I fainted, drawing him off balance. With a desperate slash, I managed to nick his arm, drawing a thin line of violet blood. He hissed and flinched back. Meanwhile, Zara darted forward, unleashing a brutal thrust to the reptilian's side. The spear tip struck armor plating, sparking but failing to penetrate. Abruptly, the overseer shouted, "Enough!" and slammed a lever. A loud buzzer blared, echoing off the pit walls. Our opponents froze, breathing hard. We stood panting, the chain between us rattling as we tried to regain composure. Sweat burned my eyes. The overseer's voice dripped with condescension. "Barely passable, but you will suffice for now." He turned his masked face to other pairs still sparring across the pit. "Next group!" Guards appeared to escort us away. The reptilian shot Zara a lingering, hostile look as we departed. The wiry humanoid glowered at me. I could not tell if he felt embarrassment or was already plotting revenge for the scratch I had inflicted. Each fight in this place threatened to sow seeds of future conflict. We spent hours that day in the training pit, rotating through drills and short matches. They forced weapons into our hands: long spears, heavy axes, twin-bladed swords. Some we learned to manage. Others left us scrambling. Zara was adept at nearly every form of melee combat, but the restriction of the chain tested even her skill. I tried to adapt too, but my arms ached, and my mind spun with exhaustion. I nearly collapsed by the time night fell, and we were ushered back to our cell. That evening, a meager ration of water and a crude bowl of protein slop was shoved through the bars. Zara eyed it with distaste, but she drank and ate. I followed suit, reminding myself that staying alive meant enduring more humiliations. When lights dimmed again and the fortress settled into a tense hush, I found Zara staring at me with her sharp amber eyes. "You fought clumsily," she observed bluntly, though her tone was not unkind. "You don't say," I replied wryly. "I've seen my share of brawls. But it's different. I'm used to blasters, or at least being able to fight on my own terms." Zara inclined her head. "You will learn. Tomorrow. More trials await." Then she hesitated, frowning as if trying to find the right words. "We must learn to move as one. The chain is a disadvantage. But if we coordinate, it can be turned to our benefit." Intrigued, I raised an eyebrow. "Turned to our benefit." She shifted, gesturing with her arms. "If we can anticipate each other's movements, the chain can force an opponent off balance, trap a weapon, or strangle if used cleverly. I have seen many improvised fighting styles on my homeworld. We can make the chain ours." That sounded easier said than done, but I nodded. "I'm willing to try, so long as it keeps us alive." Thus, we resolved to survive whatever the syndicate threw at us. Thunder rattled in the distance, and the wind keened around the fortress spires. I wondered how many souls were locked in cages around us. How many more had perished in the arenas? But Zara's presence was a strong anchor, and in that closeness, I felt the faint stirrings of a fierce camaraderie. They marched us from our cell before dawn the following day, sending us to a narrower pit. This time, a different overseer, shorter and with a voice like a grinding gear, commanded us through a series of drills. Move together. Step for step, he barked. Swing with the chain, create synergy, or be whipped. Around us, other captives practiced in pairs, some faring better than others. I heard shrieks of pain as a whip cracked across the shoulders of those who failed. Zara and I spared each other a quick look. We had no desire to feel that lash, so we immersed ourselves in the exercises, over and over. We practiced stepping, pivoting, striking in unison. It was far from graceful at first. I stumbled, colliding with Zara more than once. She nearly flattened me with a spear thrust that I failed to anticipate. But gradually, we learned a rhythm. We found that if we kept eye contact and nodded subtly before each maneuver, we could move with some harmony. "You have potential," the overseer said grudgingly, though he tempered his approval with a cold sneer. "At least you're not as incompetent as the others." Behind us, I heard the hiss of the whip again and felt a shiver of pity for our fellow captives. But pity was dangerous here, perhaps even lethal. One misstep, one moment of compassion, might earn an immediate penalty from the syndicate. When we paused for a brief rest, a guard shoved a cup of water into my hands. I took a sip, passing it to Zara. She drank swiftly, then returned it, her face stoic. "We will be fighting in the main arena soon," she murmured. "I can sense it. They are preparing us." Seeing who is worth the spectacle, I swallowed, glancing upward at the high walls. Beyond them, through grates in the stone, the storm continued its lonely march across Vessara's sky. "We've got to be ready," I agreed quietly. That night, instead of our usual cell, they herded us into a communal bunk hall with a half-dozen other pairs. The conditions were no better: stale air, scratchy cots, the pervasive aura of dread, but it allowed slightly more space than the cramped cell. The chain linking us remained in place, never unlocked. One bunk over lay a pair of siblings from a desert colony. They murmured to each other in a dialect I recognized. Another bunk held two stoic, four-armed aliens who had refused to speak at all, even under the whip. The third bunk was empty. The Watchers had dragged its occupants away earlier for some unknown punishment. Zara settled on the edge of our cot, running a hand across her ridged crest in thought. "When they force us to kill in the main arena, we must be certain we kill the right targets," she said softly. "Or at least we must appear to follow orders while preserving our own chances." "This is a monstrous game," I exhaled. "I know. The question is, do we have any hope of escaping before it comes to that?" Her gaze flicked to mine. "There is always hope, but we must gather information first. We need to learn the fortress's layout. We must find out who truly runs this place. And if any cracks in their defenses can be exploited." I nodded. "Information, allies, weapons. In a place like this, we can't break out alone. Too many Watchers, locked doors, and those spires who knows what kind of turrets they have." We fell silent, each lost in our own thoughts. Around us, the others shifted in their beds. Now and then, a guard's footsteps echoed outside, accompanied by the mechanical buzz of scanning devices. A single, sputtering lamp on the wall cast flickering shadows. Gradually, I lay down. Zara remained upright for a time, scanning the room with an expression that bordered on defiance. Eventually, she, too, gave in to exhaustion, reclining carefully beside me, mindful of the short space. The chain between us rattled softly whenever either of us moved. Despite the misery of our surroundings, I felt oddly comforted by her presence. I was no longer alone in this nightmare. Something about that thought gave me enough peace to drift off to sleep. Several days passed in a similar cycle: drills in the narrow pit, forced sparring with other pairs, and brief meals of watery gruel. Bruises blossomed across my arms and torso, souvenirs of each mock fight. Zara.2 showed signs of wear cuts across her arms, exhaustion darkening the space beneath her eyes. Yet her determination never wavered, and she often gave me pointers: how to roll with a blow, how to leverage the chain around an opponent's limb. One evening, as we returned to the bunk hall, a low whisper reached my ears. "Humans. Over here." I turned, finding a gaunt figure beckoning from the corner. A woman, human, or near human, with straggly white hair. She had the pallor of someone deprived of sunlight for too long. Chains dangled from her wrists. Though she was not linked to a partner, her eyes flitted nervously. "I know a way to the vents," she hissed. "Help me, and we can escape." My heart lurched. "You found vents large enough to crawl through." She nodded fervently. "Saw them with my own eyes. They lead out to the fortress perimeter. The storm's dangerous, but freedom's worth it." Zara placed a hand on my arm, caution in her gaze. We both knew an obvious trap could be laid here. The syndicate might employ informants among the captives, testing us for rebellious intent. "How do we help you?" Zara asked quietly. The woman glanced around. "Break these cuffs." Her voice trembled. "Then we can slip away tonight. I have memorized the guards' patrol times." Zara exchanged a skeptical look with me. Breaking her cuffs would be impossible without tools, and if we tried anything suspicious, the watchers might descend in force. This was too abrupt, too convenient. Before we could respond, a loud clang echoed. A guard stepped into the bunk hall. Scanning the crowd, "You," he barked, pointing at the white-haired woman. "What are you whispering about?" She froze. Fear etched across her features. Then she bolted, sprinting for the far door. The guard cursed and raised a stun baton, electricity snapping along its length. In 2 strides, he jabbed the weapon into her side. She collapsed with a scream, her body writhing. The guard's lips curled in a sneer. He signaled 2 more enforcers, who dragged her away, leaving us stunned and silent. Unease gnawed at my gut. Had her story been real, or was it a ploy to entrap unsuspecting captives? Either way, the syndicate's response was swift and brutal. Zara laid a hand on my shoulder. "We must be patient," she murmured. "Rushing will only end in the same fate." I nodded, though the woman's screams still rang in my ears. We bunked down that night, weighed by a new layer of dread. Not only did we have to survive the fights, but we also had to beware of false friends and potential traitors. The Korat Syndicate's net was wide and cunning. "The main arena awaits." The words thundered over the fortress, loudspeakers early the next morning. Guards came, ushering pairs of captives from every corner of the structure. Some we recognized, others were new to our eyes, fresh from distant holding cells. Zara and I exchanged a grim glance and followed when prodded by a rifle butt. We were led through a wide corridor lit by flickering orange lamps. Muffled roars vibrated through the walls. I knew those roars came from a crowd syndicate overlords, perhaps wealthy patrons or sadistic spectators who paid to watch living beings slaughter one another. My skin prickled at the thought. When we emerged into the arena's staging area, I had to squint. Bright floodlights glared from overhead, illuminating a massive circular enclosure ringed by tiered stands. Jagged metal spikes protruded from the perimeter walls, and high above, a transparent energy shield shimmered, keeping out the raging storm winds. The stands held clusters of syndicate bigwigs wearing ornate masks, along with lesser members shouting wagers and jeering at the captives below. To my left, a portcullis separated us from the main arena floor. A scoreboard flickered with alien glyphs. I glimpsed a monstrous silhouette behind another gate across the arena, a beast, perhaps, or some mechanical abomination. My heart pounded like a drum in my ears. "Rowan," Zara said quietly, "stay close. Remember our training." I nodded, tension coiling in my gut. A loud metallic clang signaled the portcullis opening. The guards behind us shoved us forward. We stumbled onto the sandy floor, blinking under the intense lights. Cheers and jeers erupted from the stands, a sickening cacophony of bloodlust. Around us, 6 other pairs spread out. Across the arena, the second gate rose, revealing a monstrous creature. It resembled a giant 6-legged cat, with barbed tentacles sprouting from its shoulders. Its fur was a dark matted gray, and its eyes glowed green. Saliva dripped from fangs the size of daggers. The crowd roared louder at the sight. A voice boomed over the comm system, presenting the beasts of Karak Prime, newly imported for your entertainment. And the scum who dare face them, may their screams delight you. My blood ran cold. A second gate rose, letting out another monstrous cat tentacle creature. Then a third, each beast prowling forward, hissing and snarling. We were outnumbered. The scoreboard ticked with unsettling glyphs. The watchers in the stands seemed to place bets. I looked at Zara, gripping the chain to ensure we kept pace. She held a double-sided spear, courtesy of the guard's forced armament. I carried a short sword and a long dagger. My hands were slick with sweat. Without warning, one of the beasts snarled and leapt for the nearest pair of captives. The unlucky duo were hammered to the sand in a frenzy of claws. Screams echoing through the arena, blood splattered, fueling the crowd's cheers. I swallowed bile and steeled myself. "Focus," Zara hissed, pulling me aside as the second beast lunged for us. We dodged, and I slashed at a tentacle. It recoiled with a screech. Zara spun, driving her spear at the beast's flank. She pierced fur but didn't go deep. The monster whirled, swiping with a paw bigger than my head. We ducked, feeling the rush of air over our scalps. The chain linking us clattered against my thigh. Remembering Zara's words, I tried to use the chain as a weapon. As the beast reared back, I looped the chain around a tentacle, yanking with all my might. Zara simultaneously thrust with her spear. The combined maneuver toppled the creature onto its side, sending up a cloud of dust. "Strike!" Zara roared, voice full of fierce urgency. I lunged, driving my sword between the creature's ribs. A wet snarl erupted from its jaws. It kicked wildly, tentacles thrashing. But Zara pinned one tentacle under her foot, and I twisted my blade deeper. With a final, gurgling shriek, the beast went limp, panting. I barely had a second to breathe before Zara tugged me to the right. The third beast was bounding toward us, having dispatched another hapless pair. "Move!" she cried. We scrambled across the blood-stained sand, weaving around the lifeless forms scattered about. The beast's tentacles lashed out, one catching my ankle with a stinging impact. I stumbled, cursing. Zara whirled, hooking the chain around another tentacle to wrench it aside. She jabbed her spear forward, clipping the creature's jaw. It hissed, snapped, and raked a set of claws across her shoulder. She gasped, nearly dropping her weapon. Summoning adrenaline, I lunged and plunged the dagger into the creature's side. It twisted, bellowing in pain, giving Zara an opening to spear it through the throat. Purple-black blood spurted onto the sand. The smell was vile, metallic, and rotten. The crowd exploded into savage applause. With two beasts down, only the first remained, still mauling a now silent captive. When it finally lifted its blood-smeared muzzle, it turned its glowing eyes to us. I felt my heartbeat thunder in my ears. We were wounded and exhausted. The final beast looked fresh, enraged, the taste of blood fueling its frenzy. Zara set her stance, spear braced. I shifted my grip on the sword, ignoring the searing pain in my ankle. The beast charged, leaping straight for me. I raised the blade, feeling the monstrous weight crash onto steel. My arms shook from the impact, and we tumbled backward. The creature's jaws snapped inches from my face. Droplets of saliva spattered my cheeks. Zara roared, hooking the chain around its neck from behind. With all her strength, she yanked, cutting off its air. The creature thrashed, trying to roll onto its side. I slashed, wildly, managing to slice open the creature's chest. Yet it refused to die easily, eyes blazing with primal fury. Somehow, Zara managed to tighten her choke, the chain digging into thick fur. I put my shoulder against the beast's flank and drove my sword into its rib cage. Feeling bones crack, the creature made a final, piteous wheeze before slumping atop me, limp and crushing. Clawing my way free, I saw Zara panting, sweat and blood dripping down her arms. The chain around her hands was slick with gore. The entire arena was silent. Then, as one, the watchers erupted into triumphant screams, fists pumping, masks tilted in excitement. The scoreboard blinked, and alien glyphs displayed our victory. A voice boomed over the comm. Incredible. These two scum have vanquished the Karak Prime beasts. A rare feat indeed. Zara and I exchanged a shaky look. We were alive, for now, but in the stands. The masked overlords observed us with cold calculation, as if we were pawns in some elaborate game. I realized, with a sick lurch in my stomach, that this was only the beginning. In the aftermath, the guards herded us away from the arena floor, forcibly separating us from the other survivors. Out of the original half-dozen pairs, only 3 pairs remained upright. The rest lay in pieces on the sand. We were taken to a medical bay of sorts, a grim, utilitarian space where droids and a handful of surly staff patched up wounds just enough to keep the fighters functional. No actual compassion was shown. They dabbed antiseptic on Zara's shoulder slash, wrapped a bandage around my torn ankle, and handed us each a small bottle of foul-tasting tonic to replenish fluids. The medic, in charge, a wiry man with a scar across his cheek, eyed us with a sneer. "Don't think your victory means you get special treatment. The Syndicate invests in you now, so your bodies must remain in working order. That's all." Zara glowered, but she held her tongue. We accepted the meager treatment, wanting only to regain enough strength to keep fighting another day. But as they led us from the medical bay, the hush in the corridors hinted that we had drawn notice. Even the guards seemed less cavalier. They exchanged glances, muttering among themselves. Perhaps they knew the overlords were watching us closely. We were locked in an isolated chamber that night, separate from the usual bunk halls. My ankles ached, and my entire body felt drained. Zara's bandage was already spotted with blood. Yet, sitting there on the cold floor, we also felt the eerie glow of something like victory. "We survived," I said hoarsely. My voice still trembled. "At least for now." Zara's eyes held mine, and she gave a slow nod. "Yes. But more challenges will come." I leaned my head against the wall, exhaling. I can't believe we killed those creatures. I've never fought anything like that. If it weren't for you," she lifted a hand. "You fought well. Rowan, courage means more than skill sometimes, and you showed cunning, using the chain. We had to do it." Some unspoken weight pressed on my chest. "Do you ever wonder," I asked softly, "if we've lost too much of ourselves here?" She looked away, eyes distant. "All the time. But we must endure. One day, we will be free. And perhaps the blood on our hands will be forgiven if we use our strength to save others from this fate." Her words carried a strange hope. I closed my eyes, imagining that possibility. To topple the Syndicate, or at least escape far from its clutches, would be redemption. A clang resounded against our metal door. A guard's gravelly voice called, "You, alien, come with me." Our chain rattled. "I go where he goes," Zara snapped, pulling me forward. The guard grunted. "Not tonight. Orders from above. You, the female fighter, stayed alone. The rest of you," he gestured at me dismissively, "wait here. We'll shackle him so he won't wander." My gut twisted. "Wait," I protested. But 2 more guards burst in and seized me, forcing my arms behind my back, removing the old chain that bound me to Zara, then clasping my wrists in heavy cuffs. Another chain was locked around my ankles. "What are you doing?" I demanded, struggling futilely. No answer. They dragged Zara out into the hall, slamming the door behind her. I glimpsed her tense expression, a flicker of worry in her eyes. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with the chilling echoes of footsteps. Hours passed with no word of her fate. Each minute felt like a lead weight pressing on my chest. Eventually, exhaustion claimed me, and I must have dozed off. When the door finally opened again, I jerked upright, heart in my throat. Zara stumbled in, reeling on her feet. The door closed behind her, and the lock clanged. I forced myself up, awkward in my cuffs, trying to steady her. "Zara, are you hurt?" Her breathing was ragged, but I saw no fresh wounds aside from bruises on her arms. She looked shaken. The fiery confidence in her eyes had dimmed. She sank to her knees, and I eased down beside her, worry gnawing at me. They questioned me, she said in a low, hollow voice. They asked about my homeworld, about potential alliances, about whether I pledged loyalty to them. Her lips curled in disgust. They offered me privileges if I would pledge my loyalty. They want me to fight more, become some kind of champion in their name. My jaw clenched. I'm sorry. I wish there was a way. She placed a hand over mine, trembling. They said, they know I have a code. They said if I break that code, they will reward me, keep me alive. Her voice shook, but I refused. I will not become their champion. I swallowed hard. So what does that mean for you? Her expression grew resolute, though exhaustion lined her features. It means they will keep testing me, keep threatening, keep torturing. They might use you as leverage. Rowan, they know we rely on each other now. So, be ready. My throat tightened. I rested my forehead against hers, the moment strangely intimate despite our dire circumstances. I won't let them break us, I whispered. She closed her eyes. Nor will I. We remained like that, sharing a fragile silence in the gloom. Outside, thunder rumbled across Vessara's sky. But for a few heartbeats, we found solace in our closeness, drawing upon a rare thread of hope to keep going. It was the next day, as they escorted us into a chamber high within one of the spires, that I caught my first glimpse of the syndicate's heart. The overlords gathered there in an opulent room, lined with draping crimson curtains and lit by floating lamps that cast shifting shadows across their masked faces. A dais stood at the center, with a throne-like chair occupied by a figure in elaborate black robes, a golden crest shaped like a serpent crowning his mask. Guards shoved Zara and me onto the carpet. The overlord in black robes surveyed us silently, his posture regal and predatory. I felt like an insect under a magnifying glass. He spoke in a voice like a cold wind. You are the pair who defeated the Karak Prime beasts. We said nothing, though I sensed Zara's muscles tense. He tilted his head slightly. Our watchers praise your teamwork. They find your savage synergy most entertaining. I, Overlord Kavira, offer you a choice. Pledge loyalty to the syndicate. Fight in our name willingly, and we will grant you status among our ranks. Refuse, and you will suffer until you beg for death. Silence hung thick. My heart hammered. I thought of the horrors we had witnessed, the cruelty inflicted on innocents. The notion of serving these monsters curdled my gut. Zara responded first, her voice sharp as a blade. We fight only to survive. We will never serve you. A murmur rippled among the assembled overlords. Overlord Kavira's mask shifted, as if he was regarding Zara with a mix of curiosity and faint amusement. Your spirit is admirable, if misguided. He rose from his seat. The black robes swished around his feet. Very well. We shall let your fate be decided in the grand games. Prove your worth, or perish. One of the overlords, wearing silver and green attire, spoke up with a malicious edge. Let us see how they fare against a champion of our choosing. Kavira inclined his head, returning to his throne. Indeed, release them. The guards promptly marched us out of the spire, never once removing our shackles. My throat felt dry, and I willed my pounding heart to slow. Zara's face was grim. So be it, she muttered. We were not taken back to our usual chamber. Instead, we found ourselves tossed into a larger cell with a single barred window overlooking the courtyard. The chain between us was reattached, though they did remove my wrist cuffs so I could move freely, relatively speaking. The bruises on my arms ached. Days passed, marked only by the meal deliveries and the occasional flicker of stormlight through the barred window. We were left to wonder what the grand games entailed. No forced training or matches occurred in the interim, leaving us to stew in anticipation. We tried to maintain our routines, small stretches, quiet discussions of possible escape routes, attempts to glean details from passing guards. It was during one of these quiet afternoons, while we sat near the window, that a faint voice reached us from the corridor. Rowan. Zara. I blinked. That name from the lips of a guard was unusual. Yet there he stood, a tall man in a syndicate uniform, helmet under his arm, face partially hidden in shadow. "I have heard rumors," he said softly, "that you two are strong, that you refuse to bend the knee." Zara's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" He glanced over his shoulder, as though wary of being overheard. "My name is Taryn. I was once a free mercenary, until the syndicate shackled me with debt and forced me to serve their cause. I cannot openly help you. But there are some of us who want to see these overlords undone." Hope sparked in my chest. "You're part of some sort of hidden rebellion." His jaw tightened. "Perhaps. But it's small, and we must be careful. If they suspect us, we die. I only say this: keep fighting in the arena. Win your grand game. Draw the overlord's eyes. There may come a moment when we can strike, but it must be carefully timed." He pressed something through the bars, a tiny device, shaped like a coin. Zara caught it in her palm. "What is this?" she asked. "A communicator of sorts," Taryn whispered. "Short range. If you see an opportunity. If you are able to sabotage the fortress's shield generator, contact me with that device, and we'll do what we can to create a distraction. This might be your only chance. And ours." My mind raced. The possibility of an alliance, however fragile, sparked new determination. Yet I knew the risk. One wrong move, and Taryn could be leading us into a trap, or else we could be dooming him to execution if we slipped up. "Thank you," I said softly. He turned away. "Good luck. You'll need it." Then he was gone, footsteps echoing down the corridor. Zara and I exchanged a look, hearts pounding with cautious hope. We now had a potential lifeline. But the grand games loomed, and I suspected we would have to shed more blood before an escape might be possible. Our summons came a week later, heralded by the clang of metal on metal as guards approached our cell. "It's time." One barked. "The grand games are upon us." We were led through twisting corridors bathed in torchlight, deeper into the fortress than we had ever been before. The atmosphere seethed with anticipation. Captives marched in silent lines, chained in pairs or small groups, each bearing the marks of past battles. I noticed that some guards wore ceremonial attire, an unsettling sign that the events to come were of high importance to the syndicate's overlords. At length, we emerged into a staging area akin to the main arena, but grander. The stands rose higher, adorned with banners featuring strange symbols. Dozens of masked overlords filled the seats in the highest tier, each exuding wealth and power. A hush settled over the crowd as the announcer's voice boomed. "Welcome to the Grand Games, a spectacle of blood and skill, where only the strongest and most cunning will prevail." Zara and I were guided to a massive gate. Beyond it lay a new arena square, with elaborate obstacles scattered throughout. Spiked pillars jutted from the sands. Strange contraptions whirled in the corners, bristling with rotating blades. My pulse hammered. Whatever this was, it promised to be far worse than the beast fight. Our chain rattled as we stepped forward, joining a ring of other pairs. All told, there must have been 10 pairs, each as tense and battered as us. Among them, I saw the bulky reptilian from our early training. He glared at Zara and me, hefting a massive axe. Another pair I recognized only vaguely. 2 wiry beings with insectoid features. We shared wary nods of acknowledgement. The gate sealed behind us. A hush blanketed the stands. Then a series of smaller gates around the arena floor slid open, revealing not beasts this time, but heavily armed fighters, gladiators decked in spiked armor. Some obviously enslaved, others perhaps loyal syndicate cronies. The scoreboard lit up with swirling glyphs. A voice rang out, full of glee. "Round 1, survive the gauntlet." Without further warning, the gladiators charged. Blaster fire erupted, forcing us to scatter behind obstacles. I cursed under my breath. We had only melee weapons, no guns. Zara yanked me to the side as a volley of laser bolts scorched the sand where we had stood. "This is madness," I hissed. Zara's expression hardened. Madness or not, we must fight. We sprinted behind a spiked column, metal scraping on metal as the chain swung. One of the gladiators, a hulking brute with a proton hammer, barreled toward us. Zara sidestepped, hooking the chain around the hammer's handle. She tugged, unbalancing him. I lunged in, stabbing his exposed side. He roared in pain, dropping to one knee, black armor cracking. Zara finished him with a swift spear thrust to the neck. Before we could catch our breath, another foe spotted us. This one brandished dual pistols, raining blaster shots in our direction. We ducked behind a thick steel panel. Red-hot plasma sizzled as it struck the metal. My heart slammed in my chest. "We need a ranged weapon," I gasped. Zara's eyes flicked around the arena. "We can take one from a downed foe." The scoreboard changed color, and overhead, watchers cheered. Some pairs were already falling, pinned by blaster fire or hammered by heavy melee attacks. The chaos was deafening beams of light, the clang of steel, shouts of pain. A new threat loomed to our right, an armored figure wielding a plasma lance. He rushed us with a vicious battle cry. Zara deflected the lance with her spear, sparks flying. I tried to circle behind, but the chain restricted our movement. Instead, we pivoted together, forcing the attacker's lance upward. That gave me an opening to slash low with my sword. My blade bit into his thigh, causing him to stumble. Zara capitalized, plunging her spear into his chest. He collapsed in a heap of sputtering armor. "His sidearm!" I called. Zara bent down, ripping a small blaster from his belt. She tossed it to me, then grabbed the plasma lance for herself. I tested the blaster's charge level, a few shots left. Better than nothing. We pressed ourselves against the steel panel. A quick peek around the edge revealed two more gladiators converging. I fired a shot at them, striking one in the shoulder. He reeled, screaming. The other dove behind a low barrier. We advanced, hearts pounding. Zara used the lance to vault over the barrier, while I circled with the blaster. The pinned gladiator swung a spiked club at Zara, but she ducked, slamming the lance forward. As he fell, I squeezed the trigger, finishing him off with a bolt to the back. An unpleasant wave of revulsion hit me, killing at close range. Felt deeply wrong, but in this pit, hesitation meant death. Suddenly, a shrill alarm blared. The scoreboard flickered, and the overhead announcer cackled. "Round 1 complete. Survivors. Prepare for round 2, the maze of blades." Walls began rising from the arena floor, forming a convoluted labyrinth. Some pairs were still fighting, but mechanical gates slid between them, cutting off line of sight. We found ourselves in a twisting corridor of metal and stone, with rotating saw blades erupting from the walls at intervals. The chain linking Zara and me forced us to move carefully, side by side. The crowd's roars sounded muffled overhead, an echo of savage delight. "Stay alert," Zara warned. "Traps on every side." Our path led us to a junction where a row of spinning blades blocked passage to the left, while an open corridor beckoned right. Tension coiled in my gut. "Let's go right," I suggested. No sooner had we taken 3 steps than a section of the floor dropped away, revealing a pit lined with jagged spikes. I froze, teetering on the edge, my heart jolting. Zara yanked me back just in time. A near miss. "Watch your step," she muttered. We edged around the pit, pressing against the corridor wall. The spinning saw blades shrieked overhead. A faint scuffle alerted us to another pair approaching from behind. I raised my blaster, but realized I was out of shots. Zara readied the plasma lance, and we whirled. Relief crashed over me when I recognized the insectoid pair we'd seen earlier. Their antennae twitched. Allies. One of them hissed uncertainly in broken standard. Zara hesitated, then lowered her weapon an inch. "For now," she answered. "We can cover more ground if we move together." The insectoids clicked their mandibles in agreement. Tentatively, we pressed on as a group, navigating trap after trap. A sudden panel erupted with flares of flame, forcing us to flatten against the wall. At another turn, a spiked pendulum nearly decapitated me. My breath came in ragged gasps. Eventually, we reached a central chamber. Its floor was a complex pattern of tiles, some of which clicked ominously underfoot. The insectoid pair tested a tile, and a barrage of arrows shot from the walls, perforating the first insectoid's torso. He shrieked and collapsed, greenish fluid pooling. The second insectoid let out a distressed hiss, kneeling beside his fallen companion. Horror twisted my stomach. Zara tugged my arm, urging me forward. "We have to keep moving," she said, her voice taut with regret. With trembling limbs, I nodded. We navigated the tiled floor by carefully probing each step with the lance. After many tense minutes, we emerged on the far side, glancing back to see no sign of the remaining insectoid. Maybe he'd succumbed to grief or found another route. At last, we stumbled into an open area. A flight of stairs rose before us, leading to what seemed like an exit from the labyrinth. The scoreboard overhead flashed again, alien glyphs swirling. The stands erupted in fresh cheers. We climbed warily, expecting another trap. None appeared. Beyond the archway at the top, a wide courtyard opened beneath the Overlord's towering seats. A small cadre of heavily armed guards waited, weapons leveled. My stomach sank. Had we made it only to be executed on the spot? But the guards parted, revealing Overlord Kavira himself. Flanked by lesser overlords, he raised his hands, and the crowd fell silent. "Behold the survivors of the Maze of Blades," he proclaimed, his voice echoing. "Few among you remain. Now, your final challenge awaits. One among our loyal ranks has volunteered to face you to test your worth in single combat." A slender figure stepped forward, clad in black armor with a familiar helmet under his arm. My breath caught. It was Terran, the guard who had offered us the communicator. His face was set in grim determination. A hush seemed to fall between us. Kavira's laughter echoed. "Terran, your overlords command you to slay these two, or be condemned as a traitor. Show us your loyalty." Terran's eyes flicked to Zara and me, flickered with regret, then hardened as he put on his helmet. He raised a saber of crackling blue energy. Zara's face went pale. "He was the one offering us hope," she whispered. "Now they force him to stand against us." I tightened my grip on the useless blaster, wishing it had any juice left. My mind spun. Could we feign a fight? Could Terran orchestrate an escape? But the overlords watched with hawk-like intensity. Terran advanced, leveling the saber. "Defend yourselves," he commanded, loud enough for the watchers to hear. Under his breath, he hissed, "Trust me if you can." Zara braced the plasma lance. I drew my sword. Around us, Overlord Kavira and the crowd looked on with rapt attention. In that moment, I realized how precarious this was. We had a secret ally being forced to appear loyal, and the entire syndicate was watching, ready to crush any sign of treachery. One misstep, and all was lost. Our final trial had begun. Terran's saber hummed as he lunged. Zara barely raised her lance in time, sparks cascading where the weapons met. I darted to the side, forced to follow Zara's pivot because of the chain. My sword was no match against Terran's high-energy blade, but perhaps I could distract him. We exchanged a flurry of parries, Terran's attacks measured but swift. He grazed my arm with a sizzling pass, leaving a stinging wound. I hissed in pain. The watchers cheered, enthralled by the spectacle. Overlord Kavira leaned forward in his seat, clearly relishing the tension. We locked blades again, Terran pressing against Zara's lance. Their faces were inches apart. His voice emerged through gritted teeth, just low enough that the overlords might not catch every word. "Strike high. I'll dodge left. Break the support pillar. Then use the communicator." My mind raced. A support pillar. I glanced around. Just behind Terran stood a tall metal beam supporting part of the overhead rig. If it collapsed, it might create enough chaos to mask our escape. Possibly Terran wanted us to sabotage it, feigning the finishing blow. Zara caught my eye. I gave a quick nod. She spun, swinging the lance at Terran's head. As promised, he dodged left, allowing the plasma tip to slice deep into the pillar behind him. A spray of sparks erupted, the metal screeching. The watchers roared, thinking this was just dramatic effect, but the pillar groaned ominously. "Again!" Terran shouted, circling around me, his saber menacing in fluid arcs. I thrust forward, aiming to look as though I was trying to pierce Terran's armor. He intercepted with a flash of blue energy, the blow sending vibrations through my arms. Zara lunged once more, driving the lance into the weakened metal. With a tortured clang, the support gave way, the overhead rig above the dais shaking violently. A portion of the dais collapsed in a shower of debris, forcing Overlord Kavira and his cohorts to scatter. Shouts of alarm filled the air. The stands trembled, the crowd gasping as some of them rushed to flee potential danger. For a heartbeat, confusion reigned. Terran pivoted, stepping close enough for me to see his tense expression behind the visor. Use the device. The generator is in the sub-level below. If you reach it, we can bring down the fortress shield. I'll cover you. Zara was already fumbling in her belt pouch, retrieving the coin like communicator Terran had given us. I grabbed her wrist. We need to get out of the arena first. I gasped. A handful of syndicate guards were rushing forward, rifles leveled. Terran turned to face them, brandishing his saber. Move! Hurry! We didn't need to be told twice. Keeping low, we sprinted across the courtyard, weaving among scattered debris and the bodies of fallen gladiators. The chain between us clinked, but we'd become adept at moving in tandem. Blaster bolts whizzed overhead. Terran engaged the guards, deflecting some shots, drawing their attention away from us. We spotted an open gate off to the side, likely the entry used by the gladiators. A guard tried to block our path. Zara's lance flared, catching him in the chest. He went down hard, and we bolted through the gate into a dim corridor. Alarms blared now, echoing through the fortress. We sprinted along the passage, searching for a route downward. A sign etched with glyphs flickered overhead, possibly indicating engineering or storage levels. A door hissed open at our approach. Beyond, a spiral staircase descended into gloom. All right, I muttered. Voice tight. Let's hope Terran's intelligence is correct. We pounded down the steps. Another guard rose from below, brandishing a shock prod. Zara whipped the chain forward, entangling the prod's tip and yanking it from his hand. I rushed in, striking him across the jaw with my sword's hilt. He crumpled. At the bottom level, the corridor opened into a chamber filled with humming machinery and dull red lights. Several thick cables ran across the floor, converging on a central device that pulsed with energy, the fortress shield generator. It glowed with an eerie radiance, anchored to the walls by a half-dozen mechanical arms. This must be it. I breathed, scanning for any immediate defenders. Zara activated the communicator Terran had given us, pressing the single button. Static crackled. Then Terran's voice burst through. I'm holding them as long as I can. Sabotage the generator. Once it's down, the storm will breach the fortress, and my people can help. Hurry! Zara ended the transmission with a grim nod. We must destroy it. Easier said than done. The shield generator looked robust, its control panel locked behind a thick glass cover. Without a code, we'd have to physically damage it. I eyed the plasma lance in Zara's hand. Do you think that could do it? Her eyes flared. Stand back, she commanded. I stepped away, pressing myself against the wall. Zara braced the lance, then drove its seething blade into the generator's main housing. Sparks exploded, lighting the chamber in wild flashes. An alarm screeched. The walls shook with the intensity of the feedback. Zara thrust deeper, her teeth gritted in effort. Suddenly, the generator emitted a blinding pulse of light. A blast wave knocked us both backward. I crashed to the floor, ears ringing, the chain tangling my arms as Zara was thrown the opposite direction. The generator crackled wildly, arcs of electric energy dancing across its surface, gritting my teeth against the pain. I crawled to Zara, helping her up. You okay? I panted. She coughed but nodded. The shield's failing. We have to get out. We staggered toward the corridor. Every step a fresh wave of pain from bruises and cuts. Overhead, the fortress structure groaned. The red emergency lights flickered. Somewhere above, I heard crashing and shouting, possibly Terran and his allies launching their rebellion. Storm winds howled through newly opened breaches in the walls. As we reached the stairs, a squad of syndicate enforcers blocked the way. Their leader aimed a rifle at my head. "End of the line, scum," he growled. Before he could fire, the entire fortress shuddered violently. An explosion rocked the corridor. Chunks of ceiling rained down, and the floor collapsed beneath the squad, sending them plunging into an unseen pit below. Zara and I scrambled back, hearts hammering. Dust and debris filled the air. We found another passage, forcing open a jammed door. The path led to an exterior walkway crumbling under the storm's onslaught. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, and wind whipped at us with ferocious strength. Rain pelted our skin. We leaned into the gale, searching for stable ground. In the distance, I glimpsed Terran standing on a broken rampart, defending himself against multiple guards. He spotted us and waved, shouting something lost in the wind. Then an explosion rocked that section of the fortress, and I lost sight of him behind smoke and collapsing stone. Lightning illuminated the courtyard below, revealing a partial path that might lead us to ground level outside the fortress walls. Zara and I clung to each other, half shielding our faces. The chain rattled with each step, our hearts pounded with desperate hope. If we could just reach open ground, maybe we could commandeer a ship or slip away into Vessara's storm-blasted terrain. Anywhere but here. A final collapse shook the walls. The walkway cracked, dropping out from under our feet. With a startled cry, I clutched Zara's hand as we fell onto a lower section of rubble, sliding painfully across jagged rocks. Stars burst behind my eyes. Somehow, we landed near a collapsed gate, battered but alive, gasping for air. We pulled ourselves free of twisted metal beams. All around, the fortress was in chaos, sections crumbling, flames licking at the upper spires. Syndicate guards rushed in disarray, some fleeing, others desperately trying to contain the carnage. The shield that once protected the fortress from the violent storms was gone, leaving the structure vulnerable to the full fury of Vessara's weather. Zara pressed a hand to my chest. "Come on," she urged over the wind's roar. "We must keep moving." Together, we scrambled across a courtyard littered with fallen debris. The gates that once held captives were shattered. Figures emerged from the gloom, some battered survivors, others Terran's rebels. A ragged cheer went up as they realized the fortress was collapsing, the Syndicate's hold broken. We found an abandoned hover truck amid the chaos. Its engine still hummed, likely left behind by a panicked guard. With fierce determination, Zara climbed into the driver's seat, dragging me alongside. The chain between us clanking against the metal floor. She fiddled with the controls, growling in frustration before the engine roared to life. Gunfire rang out behind us as a few stubborn Syndicate loyalists fired in desperation. Shots ricocheted off the truck's hull. We ducked, hearts pounding. Zara hit the throttle, and we lurched forward, smashing through the fortress gates, out into Vessara's dark landscape. Rain drenched the cracked plains, lightning dancing across the horizon. We sped through puddles and swirling dust, putting as much distance between ourselves and the crumbling fortress as possible. Each moment felt unreal, as though we were living in a fever dream. At last, the fortress receded into the distance, a silhouette of collapsing spires and raging fire. We slowed the hover truck, exhaustion crashing down on us. My wounds throbbed. Zara's face was streaked with sweat and grime, her shoulder bandage soaked through. Yet amid the pain and the howling wind, we felt an overwhelming surge of relief, an impossible victory. Zara turned to me, eyes shining with fierce gratitude. "We made it." I tried to speak, but only a hoarse laugh escaped my throat. We did. In that moment, I realized that we were more than just forced allies. We had saved each other, time and again, forging a bond in blood and terror. The chain that once shackled us was still there, but it no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a reminder of the bond we had chosen. We rode through the storm-battered night, hearts pounding with the knowledge that we were free at last, bound by loyalty as much as desperation. Though the moon of Vessara lay bleak and dangerous before us, we faced it together, no longer captives, but survivors. And in that shared dawn of possibility, hope rose like a distant sun, promising that even on a ravaged moon, a new life could begin.